And welcome to the Township Whitewater Region's regular council meeting for Wednesday, September 4th. It is 1 p.m. and we're calling ourselves to order. First up on our agenda is the national anthem, and I'll ask people to stand and face the flag, please. Excellent, thank you. And next on our agenda is our land acknowledgement. And I'll apologize up front, there's a new word in our land acknowledgement that I stumble over. I will do my best. As we gather, we would like to acknowledge on behalf of the Township of Whitewater Region and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Omami Winini Algonquin people. We thank the Omami Winini people and express our respect and support for their rich history and are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of Indigenous peoples who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Next is our adoption of the agenda. The recommendation is that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region approve the September 4th, 2024 agenda as presented. A mover, please. So Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Tabbert. Any changes that anyone would like to make the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will call for a vote. All those in favor? As carried. And adoption of minutes. We have a recommendation that the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve the regular council minutes of August 7th, 2024, and the closed session minutes of August 7th and June 19th, 2024, understanding that the closed session minutes will remain confidential. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Trim. Any errors or omissions? Yes, and Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one item on the closed session. The adjournment is actually 4:44 in the afternoon, not 3:44. I'm sorry, that would have been the August 7th. I think Perfect. It was the 7th, yeah.
So amended as outlined by the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Any other errors or omissions that you may have noted in any of the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote, including the amendment that was noted by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Good. And committees and boards, there's two sets of correspondence that are attached at this point in the agenda, and I just wanted to highlight. The first one is the County of Renfrew Council summary for their August 28th meeting, and I just wanted to highlight just a couple of items that are in that summary. The first one is under the Health Committee, there is a Mesa gathering report, and this is from the Mesa meeting that took place at Miramichi Lodge and involved a number of the partners in Renfrew County who deliver support to homelessness, addictions, and we're all working together to building a healthier and more resilient community. That report is a really good read, and I'd encourage members of council, if you have a moment, follow that link and take a look at that final Mesa Gathering report. It's some interesting proposals about what can be done in our community to try to support our homeless population. Good. Also noted in there is the Emergency Services Department's purchase of the gravity-fed sandbag processing machine, which we had on standby this past spring to support our community. It has also been deployed to another municipality up north to support flooding that's occurred there, and it should be an incredible resource for Renfrew County should we ever be faced with flooding again. And the only other one I'm going to highlight at this point in time, because I think if I don't talk about it later, can we talk about that economic forum during announcements? I'm looking at the planner. Okay. Okay, we'll talk about it at announcements. Is the County of Renfrew Municipal Day that's scheduled for September 26th. You'll note it in here. It's between 3 to 5 and 6 to 8, 2 different windows available for municipal staff and councillors to attend the County of Renfrew building, meet the staff there, get a little bit of a presentation about what they do, and it just help broaden your horizons as to what happens at the upper tier municipal government. So it's an opportunity for any member of council in either one of those 2 windows on September 26th. Good. The second committee and board agenda we have on there is the Beachburg Rec Association minutes from August 12th, and I'll look to the lead from Rec if there's any additional comments. Okay, none at this time. And any comments on either one of those 2 points? Okay, seeing none. Next item on the agenda is our disclosures of interest. Is there any disclosures for any of the items on the agenda today? And I see none. That moves us into our presentations. And just before I introduce our presenters, 2 of them, 1 of them, just 1? Good. I just also wanted to recognize that we had, I'm looking through my notes, I wrote it down somewhere and moved it. Sue and Keith here. I got the names wrong a couple times, so I'm working on getting that right. Just here as members of the audience, all wanting to hear John's presentation. So next up is a presentation from John Purdon, and he's got Ron of CATA. He's back up to make sure that John doesn't stumble. John is going to present to us on the Westmeath Parquet Township presentation. And John, the clerk has briefed you on our procedures. You got 10 minutes? You're good? Okay, floor is yours.
Thank you. So yes, I'm here to talk about Project Cycle Whitewater on behalf of Tour de Whitewater, which I represent. Next slide, please. Very simple agenda. I want to give you a review of our 2024 ride, talk about Project Cycle Whitewater, big ask, of course, and finally, if there's any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer those questions. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. So our ridership for 2024 was was 400. The blip in 2019 is when we gave away free beer. All right, so perhaps if we want to get our numbers, we seem to have plateaued on 400. So if we want to get them back up again, we're going to have to talk to Whitewater Brewery. But anyway, these were the numbers. Next slide, please. Gender neutral, pretty much. 56 males, 44 ladies. Age, 40% over 60. So you know, the older crowd. The next 2 segments from 40 to 50 to 50 to 60 represent another 40%, and then we've got some younger individuals that are sort of on the left-hand side of that route. Most people chose the longer route, 100, which is way up to Foresters Falls and back again. Again, same sort of profile as the age graph. The next 2 rides, which are 50 kilometers and 65 gravel, had the other 40%, and then again, kids sort of on the smaller rides. Next slide, please. So our goals haven't really changed. So we've been kicking around here for quite a while now to promote Whitewater region as a great place to live, bring people here, promote our local businesses, and celebrate the outdoors. And we want to promote Whitewater region as a cycling destination, and that's how we came up with Project Cycle Whitewater, which in the past we had this cute little diagram or a graphic showing a rest station, and that's what we kind of showed people for 3 years, and it was wearing thin, so we put a little bit more meat on the bones now. Next slide, please. So our goals for Cycle Whitewater is to make cycling rest stations throughout the township. To promote, again, Whitewater region as a cycling destination, and promote the Tour to Whitewater. We don't mind being a little bit self-serving in the whole process. As to what a rest station is, it's a shelter, there's seating, there'll be some graphics to show people routes and maps and things like that. We'll probably talk about our sponsors. There'll be bike racks. In the past, I think the last time I was here, we talked about putting in porta potties. And I think I'd sooner put in more rest stations right now than put in porta potties. They almost cost as much as the rest stations themselves. And so we sort of scratched that one, but I didn't want to sort of smoke you and not tell you about it. Phase 1 is to put in rest stations in Westmeath, and I'll peel that onion in a second. After that, we'll move to Foresters Falls and Beachburg, and then beyond that in other areas of the township. Next slide, please. So recently, we actually made an application to the Trillium for a Trillium grant of $100,000 to finance the whole thing, and we could sort of sit back and, enjoy it. But we were not successful in that, and we'll probably try again. It was not for especially good reason, but we were not successful. We have taken that concept diagram that you saw there before. We've turned those into a working design right now. I put the stamped design by an engineer in quotes because they're still battling in the last few little nits and gnats, but I would expect to have that done by mid-September, have a stamped set of diagrams that I can go to Doug Schultz with and say, hey, can we get a building permit? We have right now, between previous rides and the ride this year, and I've actually included the matching funds that I'm hoping the township will be able to provide us with. We should have $40,000, which is enough to build the first structure that we're going to be putting at Latteroot Park. And so our current intention, if we can get a builder lined up and if the weather is accommodating, to put that first structure up in Latteroot Park this fall. And the Westmeath Community Center one in 2025, next spring or next summer. Next slide, please. So this is what the Latteroot Park structure will look like, and there's a little bit more, there's a handout that each of you have that sort of gives you a little bit more details, or you might be able to see it or read it a little bit better. It's quite a large structure. It's 15 by 30, so it takes advantage of the entire cement pad that's there right now. So you can see it from the front and the side, and then from a footprint point of view, it'll have 2 nice benches, 2 nice picnic tables, be a very nice structure, and hopefully, this is not, while we will be certainly erecting it and putting some signage up and whatnot, it's there for everybody to use, and the entire community should be able to take advantage of it, I think, quite a bit. Next slide, please. When we move to the community center and other places throughout the township, we will go with a smaller structure. You can see it from the front, from the side, and again from the top view. It'll have a single bench on both sides of the signage that's there. There will be bike racks, of course, and things like that. And sorry for my graphics, but that's what it'll kind of look like at the community center. And the exact location will probably be more a function of what the WDRA wants than what I'm suggesting here. They may move it to different areas around the community center. I'll do this presentation for them in a few weeks, and they'll give me their input, and we'll certainly comply with whatever they want. Next slide, please. The big ask. And before I do the big ask, I would like to thank the township for providing us with a $750 grant. okay, which is now going to be plowed back into the township, okay, but nonetheless, it is appreciated. This is our second year of getting it, probably more than that. Maybe I'm just not aware, but I just wanted to thank the township for that before we move on to the next thing. So I'm hoping right now that, when those plans are finished, that we can get a quick approval from an approved building permit. I'm hoping the 10K, and I'm sure there's some rules about it, the matching funds can be made available, and help with signage. And Lane and I talked about it, although it's been a while, for maps and signage and whatnot that we'd like to put on the structures. And the ongoing maintenance, okay? So we may not be here forever. You guys are going to be here forever. So not maybe you personally, but the township as a whole. And so those are my asks. Next slide, please, if there's any questions. Have I stayed within my 10 minutes? How much time do I have?
You're good.
I'm good? So are there any questions?
Perfect. I'm just going to give the floor up to Councillor Tabbert first. She was a member of your volunteer group. I think she ran one of the rest stations. So we'll give her the floor first.
It was a successful event, and I'm all in favor of this, of these cycle stations. I think they'll be great. I mean, right now we don't have anything, so it'll give, because we can only park at the arena, or at the Westmeath Arena, and there's no place there for shelter. So I think it's a great idea, and I fully support it.
Okay. Thanks.
Any other questions?
Thanks, Connie.
Deputy Mayor, and then Councillor Trim.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and thank you again for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. When would you be planning on Phase 2 and Phase 3 throughout the township?
It'll be a function of money. I mean, it's not desire. I believe we have enough to build the 2 Westmeath structures at this point, okay? And I'm not trying to duck it, but I would say it would be 2 more years, current course and speed, okay? But we are going to be taking advantage of provincial grants and things like that. And so I'm hoping to secure something that will allow us to move forward with that more quickly. But it's a crapshoot, and I can't really predict anything, okay?
Last one. Thank you, Mayor. And that is, how come 2 then in Westmeath? Could we do 1 in Westmeath and 1 in the middle of the township? Or what? How do you?
Certainly we could. I can do anything I want, right? However, this is a Westmeath event, okay? We are extending it to the entire township and will be extending it to the entire township, but it's the people of Westmeath that put on this event. It's done in our community center. It's been hosted there for 5 years right now. So I'm going to take care of the town of Westmeath first.
Very good.
Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Deputy Mayor. And Councillor Trim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to John. Sorry. John, as lead for planning and building, I can assure you that the township has very a short service delivery timeline for building permits, and when the building department receives the complete documents they need, I can assure you that will not hold you up at all. And I think that other staff members here can attest to that. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Any other member of council? Yes, Councillor Moore.
Just one, I guess, for you, Mr. Mayor. Once these structures are up, does the section of property have to be rezoned depending on what property it's on, or who takes ownership once they're built?
I'll ask the CAO to comment, please.
For the zoning matter, and I defer to our planner Benzie, but I think the property is likely zoned open space, which allows for this type of structure. Certainly, the minimum setbacks of that zone would be pretty minimal, so it should comply. The maintenance question is a question I have as well, is what's the lifespan of this structure, and what will the township, if we're committing to maintaining it and replacing it into the future, is it a 20-year structure? Is it a 30-year structure? Is it a 40-year structure? And what is the reinvestment we need to do annually to ensure that we have the funds down the road? So maybe to John, if I could, is what do we expect would be the lifespan of the structure? And you're estimating that the larger one's about 30,000, I suspect, or something in that range? Yeah.
Sorry. I don't know that number. I can certainly ask the builders what the thing is. It is a post and beam structure, so I don't think it's going to be needed painting and things like that. It's going to be just with treated wood. I don't think we have any intentions of finishing it at this point, but I will get you a definitive answer on that, Ivan.
Perfect. Any other comments? All right, I just want to get, I'll ask the treasurer. We allocated the $10,000 in our budget to contribute to this project. I think it was 50% based on, up to 50%, up to 10,000. And it's available. Is there any other hoops that Mr. Purdon and his team have to jump through in order to gain access to that money?
No, so the money, the $10,000 was set aside and it's currently sitting in a reserve because I believe it was booked in the 2022 year end or budget cycle and was not used at that point in time, and it was just transferred to reserve. So to release the funds, it was already allocated at that point in time by council. So it would just be more or less the application for the funds and the acceptance of the project going forward through council.
Good, so green light, and another green light. Any final comments or questions from members of council? Good. John?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Really appreciate what you do. Excellent. You're welcome to stay for the whole council meeting.
I would love to. Sorry, you're on your own. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, guys.
Excellent. Next on our agenda, item number 7 is our mayor's address. I just pulled it up here, so I'll go through it. It has some discussion about the AMO conference, so it is going to be maybe a little bit longer than usual, but important enough for us to highlight the events that I participated on your behalf. So, and we have 2 other members of council, so if I do miss something, I'll ask you if you have any input at the end. Good, so September 4th, almost a full month since we were last here. It has been a very busy 30 days, more than I ever expected in August. And there's been a number of meetings and events that I wanted to report back to you on. The first is I attended the Renfrew County District Health Unit 60th anniversary on August 8th. Hard to believe that health unit has existed for 60 years, but it was nice to see a great ceremony and great recognition. Next, our Muskrat Watershed Council celebrated its 10th anniversary at its AGM on August 17th. And incredible to look back at all the projects that they've accomplished over the past 10 years with such a great group of volunteers. They had a newsletter, and I think we were going to try to get copies. We'll try to make sure that each have a copy, but it's incredible to see what these volunteers have done, and there's a history of all of the projects that they've accomplished in the last 10 years in the newsletter. And I just want to say a special thanks to Karen Koulis and her executive for all they do for better water quality here in Muskrat Lake. So thanks, Karen. And I also have to acknowledge our planner did a presentation as part of that AGM. Very well done. Lots of great questions and a great part of that AGM. Thank you. Next is the AMO Conference. The AMO Conference, Association of Municipalities of Ontario, took place August 18th to August 21st here in Ottawa, and myself, Councillor Trim, Councillor Tabbert, all attended with the Manager of Public Works for 2 days and our clerk for 1 day. We were very busy, so I'll just highlight some of the events. August 18th, we provided an age-friendly community plan presentation as part of the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility Workshop. We shared how Whitewater Region has gone through the process of adopting an age-friendly community plan and how it led to obtaining an annualized $50,000 grant to operate our Seniors Active Living Centre. An incredible achievement for our community, thanks especially to all the volunteers who did a lot of the heavy lifting. August 18th, we attended an AMO LAS water and wastewater workshop, and this gave us an opportunity to share some insights on the challenges of small and rural systems. The workshop itself was oversubscribed. The lineup was down the hallway with over an hour wait time. to get in. Fortunately, I think the two of us are at the very front of the line. So we got lots of time with the experts. Although there's only a few with a similar unaffordable extremes that we have here in Whitewater region, it was interesting to hear of all the different challenges that exist out there. And this expert panel is planning to put together some proposals to AMO about the future of water and wastewater, especially in small and rural systems. So we look forward to hearing that, the results of that workshop. August 19th, so moving on to Monday, we had 4 Whitewater delegations and I attended 1 County of Renfrew delegation. The first one was with infrastructure, where we advocated for a financing or grant system that could help make our wastewater more affordable. It was a great discussion. We offered some suggestions into different funding mechanisms that they could make a difference here in our community. They took the information. I think it was very clear that we are in a situation that's unaffordable, very unaffordable, and they hoisted it on board. We'll see if it results in anything. We did meet with Sport, Ministry of Sport, where we discussed our 3 arena models and the efforts that our council has made to go to a single arena and consider the adaptive reuse of 2 other facilities, given the limited provincial investment in recreation facilities. And just at the same morning, I believe they announced a $200 million per province-wide grant for recreation facilities. So that's just another indication of the limitations in terms of the money that might be available for recreation facilities provincial-wide. Then we met with the Treasury Board's Secretariat, where we outlined our past experiences with our 3 flood emergencies in the past 7 years and advocated for funding to help our emergency response capacity with things like a mobile generator that would enable us to have multiple locations for relief center and not just be constrained to wherever there was power. A water gauge system that could help us monitor water levels specifically in Element Lake, and assistance with the dredging of the Westmeath boat launch to make it available for emergency use all year round. So very well received. They also announced a grant that was opening up, which we'll be submitting for, and they encouraged us to submit on the first 2 items that we proposed. The dredging of the Westmeath boat launch, they asked they would gather more information internally and come back to us. With Ministry of Finance, we advocated for provincial funding to help compensate for the farmland tax rebate extended to over 58% of our land mass. So for those people that aren't tracking, farmland qualifies for a 75% rebate in municipal taxes. And the intention is that these farmers are feeding our cities, and therefore they take less municipal services, therefore they should receive this rebate. This is a provincially imposed rebate. Traditionally what's happened is the urban centers would in result help compensate the rural centers for this rebate. That has since eroded down to a very small amount. We advocated that we wanted to be reconsidered for additional funding. We recognize that the savings is necessary for us to support our agricultural industry, and we all want to make sure that we have farming industry. However, we are internally funding the rebate rather than it being borne by the urban residents whom we feed. So we asked for the province to reconsider how much money could be transferred back to us in recognition for the farming production that we do. Lastly, with county on that day, I attended a Ministry of Education delegation. There we advocated for additional $11 a day childcare spots to be available to rural Ontario, specifically in the county of Renfrew. Here in Renfrew County, we are currently at our limit for the next 3 years. We cannot grow in our $11 a day daycare spots, and I advocated that that was unacceptable. Here in Whitewater Region, we only have 6 subsidized spots that physically exist in Whitewater Region. With the number of children and the number of farming communities and folks that need support right where they live, we need to find a different way to redistribute the available slots, because they're not all being used in other areas of Ontario. They heard us. They encouraged us, and we offered some solutions. I won't get into the detailed solutions, but we offered some solutions that they're considering. We may know more this fall. August 20th, so this is Tuesday, we had another 4 Whitewater delegations as well as a joint delegation with 2 other municipalities, Greater Madawaska and Madawaska Valley. First off, we met with health, where we advocated for an increase in home and community sports for our rapidly growing seniors community. Here we highlighted that we're at 23% of our population is currently seniors. It's going to grow to over 27% within the next 3 or 4 years. Provincial average is somewhere around 19 or 20. So we have a very an area of our demographics that we need to focus on. So we believe that our Seniors Active Living Centre, which we've now gratefully been able to get from the province, offers us a great funding multiplier from which we could bolt on additional funds and expand the amount of services that we can offer in Whitewater in partnership with our neighbours like Eganville District Seniors. Again, very well received by health. They encouraged us to go and meet with Ontario Health East and see if we can find a solution for the upcoming fiscal year. So positive. With next meeting was with Minister of Natural Resources, where we advocated for supports to complete the dredging necessary to make the Westmeath boat launch usable year-round, not only for the public but also for the OPP, MECP, and MNR. We advocated also to see if the surplus lands of the Timinco mine site, so just outside of Haley town site, we may be able to consider some of the surplus lands, the non-mining lands, could be considered for a future Whitewater industrial park where we could help to grow our industrial base here in our community. Again, MNR has encouraged us to work with regional reps to see if that is possible, and I know the CAO is working behind the scenes trying to make those connections. Next, we met with Minister of Rural Affairs, Lisa Thompson. Right away, she knew who Whitewater was. She commented about the junior farmers coming here in Whitewater rafting. She knew Janet Collins from the Cobden Egg Board. It was a very interesting conversation and very welcoming. And she is actually looking forward to coming back to our community as part of the Rural Economic Development Forum that's coming up in October. So I said we'd love to host her. So we'll see what that comes out to. But what we asked her for is first we thanked her for the award of the recent RED grant, Rural Economic Development Grant, and then we asked them to consider other grants like that, such as Main Street beautification that we could use in conjunction with our agricultural societies and our other community organizations like Tour to Whitewater, where they host these fairs and activities. We could help beautify and make our streets more welcoming to help aid in that rural economic development, that tourism attraction. She was all over that, asked us to put the recommendations in writing and forward them to her staff. So again, we may or may not see some rewards for that, but a worthwhile discussion. Next, we met with the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Gaming, Minister Cho. We discussed a number of tourists attracted. We wanted to portray to him how our small community of 7,200 people in a rural community attracts about 70,000 visitors each year. That's when you include whitewater rafting, adventure tourism, our cycling events, our fairs, Taste of the Valley. Over 70,000 people come to Whitewater region. He was blown away. Talked about wanting to incorporate us into a number of events that may be happening provincial-wide, but we have some follow-up information to provide him and his staff. We also discussed the recently acquired CN rail line and its potential not just for the public, but also ATV and snowmobiler users. And he was very excited about snowmobiling, was interested in how he could advocate to increase that. And we said additional funding and grant opportunities to build and support these opportunities is what we needed in rural Ontario. And lastly was the joint delegation that we did with Madawaska Valley and Greater Madawaska. We attended with finance to discuss short-term rentals. And what we kind of outlined to them based on the discussion, and this was the discussion that took place on June 19th, the administrative burden for us to consider something like municipal licensing schemes is significant, especially in rural Ontario with limited number of staff and limited number of short-term rentals in comparison to some of these bigger centres. We asked the province to consider something more broad, such as a specific tax rate that could be applied on short-term rental properties, or something that could capture what was happening in the community. They took it aboard. They are working on a committee under Municipal Affairs and Housing is looking at it and then making recommendations back to the provincial legislature. So we'll see if our input is included in that. The conference offered a number of other workshops, working lunches and presentations that covered a wide range of topics. I'm not going to get into the details of those, but it was a very busy and highly productive 4 days. And I just wanted to thank all the staff that did all the prep work on all of those packages. It was incredible, and the detail was perfect. And I think we delivered a very good delegation in all 8 situations to represent Whitewater Region. With that, I'm just going to pause for a moment. I'll see if Councillor Tabbert, Councillor Trim, have you got any input on some of the presentations, comments? Councillor Trim?
Remember my mic. Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I too want to extend my appreciation to staff for the amount of work that went into the documents and from the public works, the maps, that everybody, all the ministers and staff were really impressed about that. But what our mayor didn't mention is how well he presented this information and how well we were received. So I want staff to know and everyone to know that Mayor Nicholson really did us proud at the conference, as he always does. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks. I wasn't fishing for compliments, but thanks. Good. Nothing? Okay. Good. It was a great conference, so but busy. I think I was pretty much exhausted at the end. Okay, just a couple more, 3 more points. August 23rd and 24th was our Cobden Fair, and a number of the members of council attended, including the opening ceremonies, burger booth, and farmers market ice cream stand. I had a poor shift. No one comes for ice cream at 10 o'clock in the morning. So, prime time. But yeah, excellent to see the turnout at the fair. I think the numbers were very good. I can't remember them exactly off the top of my head, but they were very happy with the performance that they did, again, with volunteers. August 29th was the County of Renfrew Summer Company wrap-up. The Deputy Mayor and I were unable to attend, so Councillor Trim and I think Councillor Tabbert attended as well on our behalfs. And I'll get him to say a few words at our round table during announcements, if that's okay. Good. And September 3rd, I attended a meeting with our MPP, the Executive Director of the Eganville Seniors District Seniors, and the ED of the Barry's Bay and Area Seniors Citizens Home Support Services, and our own Manager of Community Services, all in an effort to advocate again for our home and community support here in Whitewater Region, as well as an increase in assisted living services across a band that goes from La Paz all the way through to Barry's Bay. Very well received by our MPP, and he encouraged us to submit to Ontario Health some proposals. So I know that Stephanie is working hard with Kayla, and they're going to put something forward on increasing home support and assisted living services. Good. That ends my long report. Thank you for your patience. Good. Any questions or comments on it? Good. All right, we'll move on. Next is public comments, and I'll ask the clerk, is there any public comments registered?
I received none.
Okay, and nothing virtual?
We have no one online, no.
Okay, perfect. Good. That moves us right into reports. First item 9.1 is Bill 185, cutting red tape to build more homes. The recommendation before us is that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region receive this information report to Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act, and the new Provincial Planning, formerly Policy Statement 2024. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Ooh, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Bell. And which staff is this going to? Oh, to our planner.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Nicholson. So The province has something called a Housing Supply Action Plan. And over the past couple years, they have made a lot of changes to the legislation and the regulation that governs how municipalities plan and how they implement a lot of the actions that they have the purview to do. So the latest one came into play on June 6th of this year, and that's Bill 185. And Bill 185 updated a couple different legislations, the Planning Act, the Development Charges Act, and the Municipal Act being the most relevant to us. They did change some others. And they did make a slew of changes to these, but in the report, I've kind of picked and chose the ones that are most relevant to us here in the township and here across the county. And the one interesting thing about this particular piece of change to the legislation is that it actually, I think over the past 3-5 years, there's been 3 or 4 of these broad sweeping amendments. So it's been really challenging for the planning community and other municipal staff as well to sort of keep up. And a lot of what was in this most recent act actually undid stuff from the previous two. So it's like a fast-changing policy world as the province tries to figure out what it can do and what municipalities can do in an effort to support more housing. So with that, I'll just highlight some of the key things here to the Planning Act first. So back a year and a half ago in Bill 23, third-party appeal rights. So this means the ability to appeal an application if I'm a neighbor of an application or a neighbor of a proponent or maybe a community group. Those folks lost the ability to appeal an application to the Ontario Land Tribunal for minor variances, consents, and draft plans of subdivision. And in this latest piece of legislation, they extended that so that now they can appeal a zoning bylaw amendment or planning act application. Sorry, official plan amendment application. So really now the only person or only type of person that can appeal an application is the minister, the applicant, a public body, a specified person, or the registered owner of the land. So certainly members of the public are still welcome to come to council or come to the Committee of Adjustment with their concerns, and you're welcome to consider those concerns as you make your decisions. They do not anymore have the ability to appeal that decision. So that was quite a change that got a lot of folks talking, and it's intended to a lot of projects go through the appeal process and then they stay there for years. And so this is an intent by the province to try and remove that ability to get things through faster. But it does change how the public participates in the planning process. The next thing is just to note that, so Bill 109, which came in place about 2.5 years ago, that had the application fee refund program. So if staff or if council didn't make decisions in certain timeframes, we had to refund the application fees. We never actually, like in the township, we never had to do that because we meet our timelines. But nevertheless, this legislation gets rid of that fee refund program, so now we don't have to worry about that in the future. One of the things that changes was, you might have heard it, it's called use it or lose it. So there's new expanded powers that municipalities can use if a site plan control or a draft plan of subdivision, conditions on when they can lapse. And further, for old subdivisions that were in place before, I think it's 1997, sometimes they never had a period where they could expire. They just went on for years and years and years. But now they're putting in saying, no, you only have 3 years left after Bill 185 came into place for those. And then another change with the Planning Act, as well as with some of these other regulations that they changed. We often think that these things they tell municipalities what we can and cannot do, but they also outline what the ministers can and cannot do. And from reading all this, they actually made a lot of changes to the roles of the minister. And One of them is that the minister can put in certain types of regulations around additional residential units, additional units. So there's been no regulation in place yet, but they've given themselves the power to say to a municipality, you know, if you're going to allow 3 units on a lot, and you're not going to be able to put parking requirements or other lot provisions on it. So it's giving them the power to tell municipalities more of what they can and cannot do. So it's just changing their power a little bit. So those are the main things that I kind of found in the Planning Act. For the Development Charges Act, they did change quite a bit. Again, we weren't quite so affected by them, but the main thing was that in a previous legislation, we weren't able to include study costs and when we the rates of development charges. And there was so much pushback, I guess, that now they've said, okay, we're going to undo that, and that municipalities can consider study costs back in the DC rates. This regulation or legislation also changed the Municipal Act. So one was about the ability that municipalities can pass bylaws on the allocation of water and sewer capacity. And another one I thought was actually really interesting, and this kind of flew under the radar, but it gives the province the ability to make a reg that would allow a municipality to give financial assistance to a manufacturer or some sort of industrial developer if they felt that it was in provincial interest. So this kind of goes back to an older form of economic development that was called like smokestack chasing back in the 80s, that the municipalities would give money specifically to proponents if they wanted to invest and make a thing here. So we've kind of gone away from that. We had, but now the province is saying in certain situations, we might tell the municipality that they can or that they should give a financial bonus to a certain type of proponent. So that's kind of interesting. So the second major big thing, and this just happened a couple weeks ago, is an update to what formerly used to be called the Provincial Policy Statement. So the PPS really talks about what municipalities have to consider when they're doing their land use planning. The Planning Act talks about how, the PPS is really about the what. And so they changed the name to the Provincial Planning Statement. And the main reason for that is because up here, the main provincial type of policy that we had was the PPS. But in Southern Ontario, they have other layers of provincial policies and plans that they have to implement. So one of the big ones was called the Growth Plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe. So the province decided to get rid of that and implement some of those other things from that plan into the PPS. So the PPS is sort of a merger of those two former plans. So as a result, we got some growth plan policies into the PPS, particularly around planning for forecasting on populations and encouraging intensification. So that's kind of the big thing that changed with this particular new PPS. Overall, I'd say it impacts the municipalities that were part of the Greater Golden Horseshoe a little bit more than us. So just some key things to highlight, though, that will need to be addressed in an amended official plan. The settlement area expansions have changed a bit. There's also a new policy that talks about partial servicing. And this, I think, is interesting and will need to be discussed further with the County of Renfrew. This was not in the former PPS. This is brand new, but it has implications for places like Beachburg. So there's a policy now that says within rural settlement areas, partial services will only be permitted if the development is serviced by individual on-site wells in combination with municipal sewage. Beachburg is the opposite. It's a municipal water system and individual septic systems. So what this policy is saying is that, what my first interpretation, and this is all brand new, so it will need further discussion with other planners and certainly with the county, is that you couldn't expand a partial service or a development on a partial service that is with water and not sewer. So I think that has implications for us, for communities like Beachburg, that will need to be discussed with the County of Renfrew as they're updating their official plan. The other big thing is around agriculture. So part of the growth plan talked about this way to plan your agriculture through an agricultural system approach. We don't really know what that looks like up here. And we've talked to folks at OMAFA and MMAH as well. And I think this will be a big discussion at the forthcoming Agricultural ECDEV and Planning Conference that the county is going to be hosting on October 22nd and 23rd. So we're going to get more information on how to implement this new planning system for our agricultural areas. Another thing around agriculture is that it now permits 3 units on an agricultural lot. So it's a way to add more housing on agricultural properties for farmers and farmers' families without having to sever and further kind of cut up the ag land base. So that was a welcome change, I think, from the agricultural community, because originally when this policy was proposed, there was talk about allowing more severances in agriculture, and that got a lot of pushback. So now they're saying, okay, in lieu of that, we'll just make it easier to build more homes on an agricultural property. So those are the highlights. If there's any further questions, I'd be happy to answer them after today or in the next couple of days. I believe that the County of Renfrew will be bringing a report to their Planning and Development Committee this coming up Monday. So they're the ones that are in charge of updating the official plan. So they're going to have to figure out how best to implement these changes and the timeline of when. So I'm assuming part of that is going to be engaging with all of the municipalities. And there's a couple other places that I think we could update our official plan. So I'll be sending all those recommendations to the other Alex, who's replacing me on maternity leave, and our CAO. But look out for that. If depending on the scope of the change of the OP, it's a pretty big process that the County of Renfrew will have to undertake at some time in the very near future. So with that, I'll stop there, but happy to answer any questions that Council may have at this stage.
Thank you, Planner Benzie. Any questions for our planner? Councillor Moore.
Just wondering, after the county has done what they're going to do, will there be a report coming back either through our mayor, or how will we receive information?
That's a great question. I would imagine so. I think they'll probably start with maybe a working group of other planners. Yeah, there certainly will be a report coming to council at some point with probably our municipal staff's recommendation to take to the county as well. I just don't know what their timeline's like, or it's all new, and I haven't talked to the county about it yet. But yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I just had a couple that came up. Can you review again who exactly can appeal now?
Sure. So it is the applicant itself, and that would happen if a decision
denied it.
was made to deny, like refuse an application. I don't think an applicant would ever appeal a positive decision for them. The minister, so the ministry, public bodies, so this would be like the County of Renfrew, maybe a school board or a utility. We have a list of public bodies in the Planning Act that we have to circulate all of our applications to. So any of them. A specified person, so that it's kind of vague, but it would be identified through some sort of regulation under the Planning Act. So okay. I don't exactly know what that means at this point. Or if the applicant, sometimes the applicant isn't the owner of the land, they're acting on behalf of the owner. So in that case, the owner would be able to as well. But yeah, no longer a neighbor or concerned member of the public.
Wow, that does change that whole appeal process. Okay. Mm-hmm. And in terms of how is this going to be communicated out to the public? I mean, we have the privilege of getting this briefing from you, but how is the province planning any way of communicating? Is that our responsibility at each planning meeting, public meeting, to share this information?
Yeah, that's a great question. It would behoove us, I think, to do it ourselves. One thing that we're going to have to update the notices.
Yeah.
So we've already have updated them on consents, but we'll have to change the way we might have to change the way we introduce a zoning bylaw amendment, as, you know, the standard legalese words that we use as well. Because we don't want to say, like, you have the ability to appeal if you don't.
Don't.
Yeah.
And it's almost, do we even need to collect names and addresses, as the clerk has done in the past, if there is no subsequent legal right with respect to them presenting or objecting and
Yeah, it still might be helpful for minutes. I don't know if we do that for Planning Act purposes, no.
I'll leave it to you guys. The other one is just a comment as we get into this, and I'm sure we'll see it at county level, but from a rural development perspective, I'm really curious about the impact to our settlement areas. And just, I know in the past we've looked at, could we trade areas to expand our settlement areas where it made more sense? You know, a place that, you know, isn't good agricultural land. Let's expand in that direction rather than this beautiful soil over on the other side. The sewer thing concerns me. And the last one is just this 3 units on a lot. Does that replace the secondary dwelling policy or supersede it in some way, or is it still kind of a tangled web? You could get a secondary dwelling and then add in 2 more properties on your, or 2 more houses on your lot?
Yeah, so where it is, it's specifically mentioned in the PPS under lands that would be considered prime ag. So it would just give an owner of that type of property to have a second unit and then to have a third unit if they so desire. It could be an interesting discussion with the county as well to say, well, if we're allowing 3 units on a lot in the agricultural designation, can we do that on the rural property as well? Mm-hmm.
Good. Excellent. Thank you. Doesn't trigger any other questions from council? Excellent. We will call for a vote then to receive this information report. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you, Planner Benzie. Next item 9.2 is a road assumption for Rafting Road, that the council pass a bylaw to accept, assume, dedicate as public highway and name the lands described in parts 4, 5, and 6 of Plan 49R-20682. That just abruptly ends. Yes, that is the recommendation. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim. And back to Planner Benzie.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So this report comes as a result of 3 applications for consent that are listed there in the report that received conditional approval from the Committee of Adjustment back in April of last year. The applications were filed by JP2G Consultants, Inc. on behalf of Joseph Kowalski. And this is one of our standard conditions that we do when we either know or we anticipate that the road that the lots are being severed off of aren't fully the standard 20 meters in width. So we ask as a condition that the applicant has to do this, that they get a surveyor to determine their half of the road, so it would be 10 meters, and anything that doesn't meet that 10 meters gets surveyed as a part and then gets transferred to the township so that we slowly over time build our road network to that full standard width of 20 meters wide. So that's what was done. The owner did get a land surveyor to do so, and the survey has been deposited. So they are described now as parts 4, 5, and 6 of 49R-20682. And given that this is a standard condition, is something that we ask for, we certainly recommend that this be done in terms of best practices to get our roads up to the standard. And by passing this bylaw today, that will contribute to this condition being filled, the next step is to have the applicant's legal owner prepare the documents to transfer those small portions into the township ownership so that they become part of our road network. And the process to do that first is to pass this bylaw, which also gets registered on title as that happens. So that's the process that we're in right now, and happy to answer any questions or comments on that.
Thank you. And Councillor Moore, any questions, comments?
No, I'm good. You've answered everything. Thank you.
Good. Councillor Trim? Good. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? It's carried. Thank you. Next item, 9.3, is the landfill compactor debenture. The recommendation is the Council of Township Whitewater Region approve the debenture bylaw for the purchase financing of a 2024 BOMAG BC 473 RB5 landfill compactor. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Tabbert. And to our treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is just the standard completion of the actual debenture process to receive the funds from Infrastructure Ontario for the purchase of the landfill compactor, which was delivered last month. It's been operating at our landfill now. So whenever the original proposal was brought forward by myself, that we were looking at a 4.38% interest rate. Upon actual completion and finalization of the loan for 10 years, it's at 3.86%. With annual payments, $104,000. Overall savings around $25,000 of the overall cost, so which was very beneficial. The two payments that will make up the $104,000 per year will be included in the 2025 budget, as that will be when the first payment for that repayment of that loan will begin, even though we're receiving the money yet this year. Every time we take on a new debenture, there's an impact on our annual repayment limit, which is the chart that I've included on the within the report. It uses our FIR numbers and calculates through all the way down to what our net revenues are. Municipally or through the ministry, we're allowed to have 25% of their net revenues, and that's what our limit is to what we can borrow and repay, which would be $2.5 million. Our debt charges right now are 1.61, including this new debenture that we've taken on, which puts our estimated repayment limit to $918,000. So that would mean we could pay back $918,000, like take on more debt to the tune of $918,000 in repayments. It varies in the actual amount of debt depending on the length of term that you take on. And I just wanted to note that in 2025, there's two debentures that will be off the books. This is the final year of them. One is our solar panels and the other one is our backhoe Freightliner. Both of them totaled $75,000. So this debenture only increases, like nets our limit out by about $25,000. And then coming in 2025, we'll be having another debenture come off the books, an excavator at $85,000. So our annual repayment limit should be very stagnant for the next few years until we start seeing more debentures come off. But having this almost 50% remaining limit is beneficial to the township. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Treasurer. And I'll go to Councillor Moore first.
Just glad to hear that the interest rate dropped, so that's good news. Thank you.
Good. And Councillor Tabbert? Any other comments, questions from members of council? Perfect. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Next item, 9.4, is an RFP for designated substance survey and asset retirement obligation. That is a very long handle. Okay, a recommendation that the Council of the Township Whitewater Region approve the award of RFP 2024-07, designated substance survey and asset retirement obligation to ECOH Management Incorporated in the amount of $25,246 $0.66 inclusive of non-refundable HST. And 2, direct staff to request that ECOH Management Incorporated provide cost for the inclusion of the 9 additional building structures specified in Appendix A and to proceed subject to the total cost not exceeding the allocated capital budget amount. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Trim. Excellent. And this is going to Superintendent Nicholson. There we go.
Sorry. Okay, so RFP 2024-07 was released on July 5th, seeking proposals from qualified firms for the completion of a designated substance survey and an asset retirement obligation calculation for 17 of our township-owned facilities. The township owns and manages 40 buildings and structures, of which 17 of the township's primary buildings were included in this RFP. These buildings were selected due to their use, occupancy, and age. So the objective of a DSS is to determine if any designated substances are present. The most common substance that we're looking for in a DSS is something like asbestos, but they'll often look at things for lead, such as in lead paint or lead pipes, as well as some other less common building materials, but primarily it's related to asbestos. So these DSS inspections are being completed primarily because of the Occupational Health and Safety Act, and these are things. This is a process that we undertake to ensure that not only from if we ever need to do any maintenance on our buildings where like walls would be disturbed, but it's generally a practice that all municipalities should have all their buildings assessed for designated substances because we're working in the buildings throughout the day. So the survey will include an assessment of each of the buildings, the 17 buildings that were listed. The consultant that is ultimately selected here will collect samples of different materials, and any designated substances that are identified, a corrective action plan will be developed for the long-term management of those items, and that would include tracking the location in the building where any designated substances are, tracking them as they're removed, tracking the state that they're in. So if they're found to be disturbed or in poor condition, there would potentially be in future years recommendations by the consultant to remove those items or to seal them in a way that would be that would meet the requirements of the Act. So the second piece of this RFP was for an asset retirement obligation. So the Public Sector Accounting Board developed a new set of standards called PS 3280, and that requires municipalities across Canada to recognize the costs associated with the retirement of their assets. So a retirement asset obligation is a legal obligation associated with the retirement of a tangible capital asset, and that arises when there's a legal obligation to retire it from service, such as through a sale or an abandonment or an asset disposal. So the costs associated with such thing as a sale could include decommissioning, dismantling, and remediation. So in the case of a building that might have asbestos identified, this would identify the cost to the municipality to remove that retirement obligation before it's sold. So as part of this, as part of the RFP, the consultant will identify all of the assets that have potential retirement obligations. Specifically, asbestos is the main one that's identified, calculating the cost to retire those in the future and incorporating them into our 2024 financial statements. So during the RFP period, 25 RFP documents were picked up, which is a pretty good showing, and 10 proposals were ultimately received by the proposal deadline of August 15th. We received bids that ranged from $21,456 to $85,882, including HST. And the proposals were evaluated by Treasurer McGonigal, myself, and the Manager of Public Works, and Councillor Moore. Each proposal was scored individually, and an average score was determined out of a total of 100. That score included, among many things, understanding the scope, experience, qualifications, the overall presentation, and the financial proposal. And in the end, ECHO Management Inc., I'm not sure if it's Echo Management Inc., received the top score of 76 out of 100. And so just a little bit of information on ECHO. They were founded in 2003, and they're Canadian-owned accredited provider of environmental engineering services. They have 2 offices out of Ottawa and Mississauga, and it will be their Ottawa office that we'll be working primarily with support from Mississauga if needed. So I'll jump down to the financial section. So the 2024 capital budget included a $50,000 for the designated substance survey and asset retirement obligation, which is funded through taxation. RFP 2407 included 17 of the township's primary buildings, and these ones were selected based on the approved capital budget and preliminary estimate that had been made per building cost to complete the assessment. So as noted, the proposal that was received from ECHO was in the amount of $24,753 below the approved budget, which was great. Therefore, staff are recommending that we engage with ECHO to negotiate the addition of the remaining 9 buildings that will eventually need a DSS. And staff have estimated, based on the proposal, that the approximate cost to complete these 9 additional buildings will be between $8,000 and $10,000, bringing the total to approximately $35,000. So our next steps will be to execute the contract with ECHO and to engage in negotiation with them to see if we can add in the 9 additional buildings up to the maximum of the $50,000 that was initially allotted for this project. And that's it. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. And Councillor Moore, mover.
Just want to say thank you to all the hard work that went into this. I know this was not an easy task, especially when you see the reports coming back, the tenders, et cetera, the RFPs. To go through them by word for word is certainly astronomical. So thank you very much for your time.
And Councillor Trim.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the manager. So I'm to understand then that the 26 buildings are all of our building assets?
So they'd be all of the building assets that have finishing. They might be heated. Some of the buildings that were, for instance, the I'm trying to think what it's called, in Veterans Park, the stage where it's just a wood structure, there would likely be unlikely to be finishings on there. It's newer. Those ones won't be assessed, but if the buildings that were included were generally ones that would be enclosed, that would have finishing like drywall, roof materials, generally are heated. Those are the ones that are primarily picked up and also are staffed and would be frequented by the public. Those are the ones we're targeting.
Thank you.
Any other questions from members of council? Good. I had Councillor Trim got my one question on the numbers, but the other one is when this report comes back and indicates there's no problems in this one building, but it could indicate that there are significant problems in a building. Does that red flag get raised and could force a decision as to how we respond to what's found? Can you amplify what the next step in this process?
Yeah, for sure. So typically these reports will come back and they'll identify whether there's, say, asbestos, and it'll also make a comment about the condition of the asbestos. So oftentimes asbestos, if it's non-friable, in good condition, generally they'll note that it's present and that the action might be that it has to be reviewed annually. So somebody would come back annually to reassess the condition to ensure that it stays good, non-friable. The less the other option that could happen was that there might be something like asbestos present in a friable form, in poor condition. Maybe it's floor tiles that are breaking apart. That might come back with a recommendation saying that they should be removed, and generally they'll state whether there's a timeline for that. And those recommendations would follow what the Occupational Health and Safety Act would say. So if there is material identified in poor condition, there could potentially be a recommendation for that those things to be repaired or removed. And then they'll also state what the timeline on that would be. Generally, the first year you will see, so you will pick up some small things, and then what the township generally would want to do is, over the course of time, the things that are in good condition, but as you do renovations and as you do like an area that we know that something large is going to be happening from construction wise, you would include that report and those actions to remove those materials and build that into your budget going forward. So it ties in nicely to the asset retirement obligation side of things. It's how you manage it in the long term, but it will also identify the health and safety concerns immediately and bring those forward to us. So part of the EACHO bid included a statement that any immediate health and safety concerns would be identified to the township immediately. So because that's something we want to know right away, especially if we're occupying the building on a day-to-day basis. So.
Thank you. The reason I ask is that just if there is some surplus realized there, we could roll the surplus back into mitigating any work that might be required immediately. So I just want to make sure that if we have a chance to address it the same. The other concern, I was trying to see if this is not an annualized survey, but a survey that we have to do on a certain timeline.
Yes, so if there's specifically under the asbestos reg, if there's asbestos identified, it has to be reassessed annually. That's a requirement of the regulation.
By a company like this?
Generally, yes, somebody that's certified to do so. The costing to do that is significantly less than the initial report, because it's less work to identify and sample it. But
okay, so then you're going to see me, push up my glasses here and say, yes, I'd rather not pay them annually to reassess something that we could remove for much less than that. So I would encourage staff, when we get the report back, do that economic finger number crunching and let's remove stuff so that it removes the requirement for us to go back and study it again. Sure. Good. Does that trigger? Yes, Councillor Trim.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noted in the report that staff is going to have to work with the consultants to do this work, and I'm just wondering, is this doable with the other tasks that they have to do towards the end of the year, budget preparation and that sort of thing? This is just another workload, additional workload, and I'm just wondering how that's being factored into all of this.
Thanks, Councillor Trim. CAO, do you want to comment on workload?
I would lean on the manager of public works just to see. I think it may have already been listed in our departmental work plan, so it's not an added task within our annual work plan. But maybe to you, Manager Cleroux, if you could provide some insight to availability to meet this goal.
Yeah, part of the task there will be initial background for drawings and for any documentation for the building that we provide to the actual consultant. Then we'll have a staff member from various departments will be going around when they're on site to do the actual inspections. And that timeline is about a week and a half or so to do all the buildings. Then we'll have either one employee or multiple employees to go around and take the technician around the buildings. It is part of the work plan. There should be no issue going forward.
Excellent. Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Good. Next item on our agenda is notices of motion. Is there any notices of motion from members of council today? Excellent. I see none. We'll jump into correspondence. There are 2 items that require direction and a number of informational items. We'll get through the direction ones first. The first one has to do with the Sportsplex Facility Joint Committee request that the City of Pembroke has sent us. The recommendation to get this on the floor is that the Council of the Whitewater Region receive the letter provided by the City of Pembroke relating to the Sportsplex Facility Joint Committee. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Bell and seconded by Councillor Trim. Good. And CAO, you're going to provide a summary?
Yeah, well, certainly can. So what we have before council is a letter. It's actually, this letter is dated August 30th. So the request actually came in by email on July 12th, and that was from the CAO for the City of Pembroke. But I had asked them to just provide it in form of a letter so that we could attach to the agenda for council. So essentially, the City of Pembroke is continuing their pursuit to the examination of a multi-use complex, which they're terming as a sportsplex facility, one that would consist of several recreational facilities within one spot, one location. This is coming about as a result of some of the improvements they've had to make to the existing pool and the current conditions and the needed investment in some of their other recreation facilities. Not unlike our own, if you will. What they are requesting from our municipality, which they've also submitted to other neighboring communities, is a partnership. So a partnership, not necessarily to fund a future project, but to look at a regional approach to these types of facilities. So in the letter, in the 3rd paragraph, the last sentence, they are at this time expecting that the cost will be between 60 to 80,000, to which would be shared amongst the participating municipalities. And what they're looking to fund is an assessment of options. Essentially, they're seeking the use of an external consultant and led by a committee of which, if we join, we'd have 1 member on the committee. To explore different options and develop the scope of work to this new facility. So what's before our council is essentially this letter. The motion in the present form is to receive the letter, and for consideration is our contributions to 2 things. One is the financial contribution to the $60,000 to $80,000, but secondly, having one of our representative members sit on this committee. Committee would include 3 members of the City of Pembroke and 1 representative from each of the surrounding municipalities. So since the reception of the original email, July 12th, as I understand it, the Township of Laurentian Valley has indicated a willingness to participate in this process. They have certain terms and conditions that they wish be applied to it, and essentially the City of Pembroke is waiting on our response to this. So the next steps would be for the council deliberation, and then myself or through the mayor, we would correspond back with the City of Pembroke, the decision of council. So I did have a conversation with the CAO, Mr. David Unroe, and Mayor Nicholson also presented to me the video of their council meeting where this was discussed. So it was a notice of motion brought forward by one of the councillors. It was essentially approved, and then they solicited input from the neighboring communities. So their council understands our position around the pool and our sort of, unfortunately, our inability to commit to the pool project. However, our willingness to examine different alternatives, support them in trying to acquire some grants, So David understands that position with the pool and understands that we'll be hearing this matter tonight. So glad to present any discussion points. Just as a point of reference, the portion of funds that we would have to commit would be in the range of 10% of that 60 to 80,000. That's kind of where it's sitting now. So you're expecting our contribution to this initial project would be around $6,000 to sort of $10,000 depending on where the RFP comes back. So thanks.
Excellent, thank you, CAO. And I'll go to the mover first, Councillor Bell. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, so just my initial reaction to this letter is just to think about the 3 facilities that we have currently in our own municipality that require attention moving forward. I think to jump into something like this where you're going to dedicate $6,000 to $10,000 for something that we were talking numbers a little bit earlier, and it's probably going to be in the range of $100 to $150 million for a facility that they're kind of outlining in this project. And I don't foresee there being any situation where we as a township could be responsible for 10% of those costs. So just my initial reaction is that $6,000 to $10,000 that we would spend on this could be better spent in our own community, funding something along the lines of what John presented here earlier today, or projects related to something that's going to be focused in our own community. So personally, I don't think I'd be in support of being part of this particular ask. But again, similar to the pool, I think we could provide support in the form of letters or just provide our support to upper level government funding and advocate on Pembroke's behalf as a regional partner. But as far as in putting taxpayer money into something like this, I don't think we have the funds for it right now.
Good, thanks, Councillor Bell. And the seconder, Councillor Trim. Good. Any other comments from other members of council? Good. Seeing none. And I know you mentioned a letter there, Councillor Bell. We'd have to amend that, the motion on the table. Is that something you're prepared to do?
Yeah, so if we wanted to amend this motion as opposed to just receiving this letter, but to direct staff to respond, just basically outlining that we're actively focused on managing and resolving our own local recreational priorities at this time, and we're just not able to allocate the funds to the proposed project right now. But we can remain supportive in collaborative efforts to secure upper level government funding and advocate for regional solutions, and possibly just include that we'd like to request that future discussions considering the possibility of a buy-in option later on, just to kind of keep that option open moving forward, might be included in that response.
Okay, I know it was a long amendment, but it's on the floor. Can I get a seconder, please?
So wait a minute.
Oh, sorry, yeah,
Sorry.
please.
So we can either do a friendly amendment and then we don't need anything, just
Is that a friendly amendment?
if everybody's, how do I want to say it? If everybody's good with it, it's a friendly amendment.
Just give me a nod if you are good as that as a friendly amendment. Excellent. So it is accepted as a friendly amendment to the motion. The motion is still on the table. Good. Is there any additional comments from members of council on this? No? Okay. I am just going to add that my personal feelings echo that of what Councillor Bell has already said. I don't need to restate it, but I just want to thank Pembroke for giving us the opportunity to be considered as this. It's not something we can afford now. We're faced with our own situations here where we need to invest in something that we haven't invested in quite a bit of time. But this is bold, and I think with Laurentian Valley, if that partnership succeeds, hopefully we'll see this come about, and maybe that's something from which we can build on down the road once we have these issues behind us locally. Anyway, that's my thoughts on it. Doesn't trigger any other comments. We will vote on the amended motion as presented by Councillor Bell. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good. And clerk, you got all the wording that you need?
I did.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Next correspondence that requires direction is the automatic speed control on county roads. The recommendation that the Council of Township Whitewater Region direct staff to respond to the letter from the County of Renfrew relating to the automated speed control on County of Renfrew roads. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Moore. I need a seconder. Seconded by the Deputy Mayor. And CAO, Manager Public Works.
I could certainly do it. I don't think I've asked Lane to prepare, so that's fine. So what we have before council is the County of Renfrew advising us that they are going to pursue automated speed enforcement. They're not asking us to become participants. They're saying they're going to do this. However, what they are asking for us is to identify certain zones or properties that we may own where they can locate these facilities or these new pieces of equipment. So essentially, I think there's value in giving them the information they're seeking, and certainly not a great deal of work to collect that information. So certainly staff are supportive of providing that information, and yeah, we're in favor of that. So I think if you would have read articles in the province of Ontario, these types of these automated speed enforcement is quite successful in some communities. One, for generating revenue, but also for reducing speeds and the like. So certainly something that the county has considered, and I suspect perhaps with a committee at council or council as a whole, and here we are moving forward, and they're looking for opportunities to locate these in our communities. Thanks.
Excellent, CEO. Yeah, this just came through at County Council, the meeting last week, and it was approved primarily as a means by which to make our roads more safe. And it is in recognition that OPP has a responsibility for speed control. They're unable to, due to a number of reasons from a manning perspective, meet that. And county is hearing loud and clear from the lower tiers that speeding is an issue in our municipalities. Now, you'll note, and the CAO mentioned it, that it's only in specific road areas. I want to say school zones and community safety zones where this type of speed enforcement can be placed. They're going to do it on the county portions of county roads that are designated in those two. So that, the spot that comes in mind is Main Street at Killaloe, which has been a huge issue for speeding. But they're offering it up from a lower tier municipality if there are areas that we would like, that they could also deploy it to help with speed control. The first spot that jumped out in my mind, Haley's, right? But, and I know the manager of Public Works will correct me, I don't think it's not a community safety zone. We can't make it a community safety zone at this point. But there may be other areas in our community where this may apply. So I personally feel it's worthwhile. I think we have nothing to lose and everything to gain by working with the county on this initiative. But I'll open it to questions or comments from other members of council. Good. Sorry, I should go to my mover first. Councillor Moore.
Really, I was surprised to see this. I had no idea this was coming. We have had many concerns over the years, and even when I wasn't on council, there's been concerns about speeding in certain areas, whether it be the hamlet of Foresters Falls or whatever. This hopefully will in turn start to bring forth further measures for traffic control and speed. Thank you.
Good. And Deputy Mayor, you're the seconder.
Thank you. I'll just echo Councillor Moore as well. But I'm just wondering, should we get one of these enforced radars in here, or whatever they are, whatever you want to call them, is it possible Whitewater would get a piece of the pie or a cut of the revenue? If, how does that work? Or is it just strictly in County of Renfrew would get the full benefit?
And for the life, I don't remember the exact details of that, what was presented to council, but I think, unless Manager of Public Works, can you respond?
So I believe that the county refers partnering with LAS. They have a turnkey solution with one of their partners. That they do the install. It's a very turnkey, and also to the actual ticketing and reporting. My understanding that if it's on a county road that they'd be involved, but that wouldn't stop us to also join LAS program and install on our roads. We currently don't have any community safety zones, but with our partnership with the county in the transportation master plan, we are developing one of the policies is the community safety zones policy, which would be tailored to same with the county. But it's one thing that if councils see the need, that we could either join the county or additionally have our own equipment.
Perfect. Could be lucrative. Thank you.
So we'll just add on, if you are reaching out to county to respond on this, just to confirm the revenue, the fee structure. Does the lower tier get involved, or are we just donating access to our roads? It doesn't matter. If we get speed control on the roads, that's my primary. But the fee thing, that's an interesting perspective. Good. Councillor Trim.
So this isn't the time, but I'd like to know how we can get community safety zones designated, because the most phone calls that I get are people complaining about the speed through the hamlet of La Passe, which isn't county, through the hamlet of Westmeath, which is, past Deputy Mayor Regier's house, and so on. And so I'm very interested in how we can control or calm traffic. The ideal is that the county, over a very short period of time, makes no money on this. Everybody is driving safely. It isn't supposed to be a business, it's supposed to be people slowing down. And so whether we get any revenue or not is beside the point for me. But the big issue is safety. And we have, as you pointed out, Mr. Mayor, a large senior population that's out walking. We have people with children walking, and it can be dangerous. And so I'm wondering, at another time, could we find out how we can create a situation where we can have this calming, of traffic calming enforcement going on? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Can I just ask, maybe the CEO, we can take that away and see if we can incorporate into some future opportunity to just give a brief overview, maybe as part of that transportation master plan? Manager of Public Works, you have something to add?
Yes, like that. Yes, part of the plan that's being developed with the county. There's multiple policies, and one of them is the community safety zone policy. So it's a checklist to how it will comply to one. And then the other one is the traffic common policy. So it's a checklist and how to, it's a checklist to see if it will meet certain criteria. And the other part is what to do with it. So yes, so these will be coming. We're probably about 3/4 through that project with the county, and hopefully in the next couple of months that we'll have a open house, and then final policies in the report will be coming probably in the new year.
Perfect, thank you. Any other comments, questions? No, so we're going to vote on directing staff to respond to the letter relating to this automated speed controls. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Good, a number of information items, and we're just going to highlight some of the we're just going to highlight these with 1 or 2 sentences, and I'm going to ask the CAO to help me out with that. The first item is Part 3, Prosecution Bylaw Services. CAO?
Yeah, so ultimately, the former prosecutor for the county of Renfrew, her name was Jennifer Grant. She had her private business as well, and through her private business, not as the prosecutor for county of Renfrew, she used to support local municipalities in managing Part 3 orders, Part 3 offenses rather, and she would invoice the municipalities accordingly for her time doing that. So she's since retired or not in that position anymore. And what the new prosecutor will not be providing that service, so we need to go out and find external Part 3 offenses support, which there'll be no change to the budget for that. And those Part 3 orders are very infrequent. They're the more severe penalties. So there's a Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. Part 1s are like minimal tickets and fines. Part 2s become more intense, and then Part 3 is quite severe stuff. So we might see 1 or 2 of those a year. So we just have to find external support to do that. They've recommended somebody. We're in the process of getting that put in place. Thanks.
Perfect, thank you. And the next one is the unsuccessful letter coming back about our inclusive community grant application that our community services manager applied for. We were unsuccessful in, so no need to comment more on that. The third one is the outage notice from Hydro One, and that's in there. No additional comments required. The next one is the provincial policy statement from the Municipal Affairs and Housing. CEO, do you want to make more comment? Planner kind of talked about it already earlier.
No, just as a note, because the plenary deal will be taking some leave, so through myself and the new Alex, not the new Alex, but Alex P, we will ensure that we communicate this to the public, whether through our reporting to council. So when we provide reports to council, we'll reference the PPS where it applies. And if there's any significant impacts to how we're implementing land use planning in our community, we might come forward with the council on specific items. But for the time being, that's how we're going to communicate it out. That's it.
Perfect. The last item is a 5-year review and annual compliance report for 2024, and this is the environmental assessment for Highway 17, Haley Station to Meath Hill, and it's done by the Ministry of Transportation. I'll get the CEO just to offer us a brief explanation so you have some context.
Yeah, and the explanation won't be much more than what's in the letter, but in 2004, the Ministry of Transportation of the Province of Ontario completed the environmental assessment of Highway 17 from Haley Station to Meath Hill. So that's the alignment of that. That was the process by which they determine what is going to be the future alignment of Highway 17 when it becomes expanded from Haley Station to Meath Hill. And that is the alignment on the east side of Muskrat Lake and the east side of Olmsted Jeffrey Lake. So that's the realignment. That realignment is shown in the official plan of the County of Renfrew. So when we receive land use plan applications, we circulate MTO, they comment accordingly, and the public could visually see that future alignment in that document. I think we've incorporated it as well in our new zoning bylaw. So on a 5-year basis, on a 5-year basis, MTO has to revise the environmental assessment, or at least go look at it and say, has there been any changes? What they're informing us, there's no changes. The alignment stays the same. So the findings continue to be valid and reflect the long-term goals. The last thing I would note is the last paragraph, they say that the ministry does not anticipate moving forward with this project soon. So I know that in our last conversation, I think Mayor Nicholson was there with MTO staff. The gentleman about my age said it's not going to be in his life that they're going to expand, which is 30, 40 years. So soon is probably over 20, 30 years. All right, thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, CEO. I appreciate that brief overview, as much for us as for the public. From members of council, any comments or questions on any of those 5 items that were just overviewed? I'll go to Councillor Moore first.
Hydro One, I couldn't open it. Good.
We can tweak it.
Okay, thank you.
Good. Any other comments on those 5? Perfect. Seeing none, we'll move on. The next item is announcements, and we will start with the Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor. I would like at this time to welcome Alex Pizlasklik and I apologize if I have pronounced that wrong, Alex. I do just want to mention, he's at the back here, and there he is, and welcome on behalf of everyone here at council and the community and staff. We're very, very pleased to have you. Thank you. I will just reiterate that we did have an interview panel made up of Councillor Trim and Treasurer McGonigal, Amanda Nesbitt from the county, CAO Burton, and myself. And so Alex will be filling in a contract position as a planner EDO. So what we have is an Alex P and an Alex B now. So that's how I think that's how everyone's been kind of, Alex comes to Whitewater Region with 4 years experience serving in various land use planning and community roles. And he is a Master of Planning, Urban and Regional Planning from Queen's University and a Bachelor Master of Arts in Geography in the University of British Columbia. Alex has joined the community development team. He joined us on August 26th, and he will be overlapping with Alex B, for those 2 weeks. So once again, very welcome and glad to have you on board. Thank you very much. And that's everything. Thank you, Mayor.
Excellent. Welcome, Alex. Councillor Bell. Good. And Councillor Tabbert.
Just following up on what you said about the summer company, we had Haley Vanderswag from Westmeath, who is one of the summer company entrepreneurs. And so I went there just to congratulate her and meet the other candidates who were very successful in their summer jobs that they created themselves.
Thank you. And Councillor Moore.
Nothing, thank you.
And Councillor Trim.
Thank you very much. I also attended with Councillor Tabbert, but I have nothing to add on that. However, I do have something else. I encourage you to go online to the Ontario Culture Days site, and there you will find Heartbeat of the Valley community events. And one of those events is going to be at the Westmeath Rec Centre, September 21st, Saturday, from 1 to 5. And it's being hosted by a local artist. And when you go to the site, you'll see everything about him. Don Kwan is his name. And along with him, I've got the list here, if I can read it, there will be Success Dragon Line Dance Troupe, China Doll, Zanita Pernikova, Soul Meadows, and Catherine Tim. These are all artists. I know that Catherine Tim and Don Kwan are local. I'm not sure about the other ones. Anyway, the big thing I should announce is it's free. So I'm not certain, Madam Clerk, if that's on our calendar. It is a big, okay, thank you. That's, I'd really like to support you, all of us, to support our local artists. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
That's perfect. Thank you, Councillor Trim. I was tracking that one, but I didn't have all that detail, so that's perfect. And I know we don't have Manager of Community Services here right now, but we have a grand opening scheduled before the next council meeting, is that correct?
Yeah, so the September 18th, there is the grand opening for the new Seniors and Active Living Center located in Foresters Falls. I believe the address is 2022 Foresters Falls Road. So as I understand it, let me just confirm that it is in fact September 18th, correct? Which is a Wednesday afternoon, and I believe Mr. Yakubuski will be present to support that opening. So we welcome all the members of council and the public to join us in that grand opening September 18th in the afternoon, starting at 1:30, it looks like. Thanks.
Yeah, please, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Could I just ask Clerk Miller if she would just send that information out to all of council and a reminder of a
The
date
invite
and
for the
whatnot?
18th.
Yeah, I will do.
Thank you.
Awesome. Councillor Trim.
Yes, if I may beg your indulgence, Mr. Mayor, going back to the compactor, I forgot to mention, and I hope I'm correct here, that we're going to be debenturing this compactor over 10 years. However, it is my understanding that we don't need to raise levy to pay for it. That coincidentally is going to be offset.
Councillor Trim. Sorry. We can't talk to that topic right now during announcements.
Oh, okay.
This could try that.
It's good. And the clerk is giving me the, as per our procedural bylaws. Good. We'll have to, if that's an issue we want to raise, we'll have to do it in other means. Good. I just want to go back to the planner. Is it possible we could speak to the Rural Economic Development Forum just briefly about it for the public?
Yes, absolutely. And I'm going to check my email to make sure I get the dates right, because I know it's in October, but my brain is not firing on all cylinders right now.
22nd.
Is it 22nd, 23rd? When did they send it to you? Oh, boy. Well, if someone can lend me a hand and just search the dates of those.
22nd to 24th, Councillor Bell. Good.
Okay, I think there's an evening thing on the 22nd, and then, okay. So, yes, so this is a conference that it's primarily run by OMAFA. And one thing I'll add too is that there was a ministry called OMAFRA. So there was ag and rural affairs were all kind of together. They've since separated. So there's one now just on ag and agribusiness, and there's another word in there. And then there's one on more like rural economic development. And I believe the delegation was with the rural economic development, not ag. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Our contacts in that ministry are still, I think, figuring out how things are working as well. But this with the ag folks, so this is a conference that has been in play for a few years now. It's always been in southwestern Ontario. This is the first time it's ever been in eastern Ontario at all, and Renfrew County was successful at partnering with with OMAFA on that. And so really the main audience is folks who are more involved in planning and ECDev, but it is open to anybody who's interested in attending it. We've got a great lineup of speakers for the third day, and in the middle day there's going to be a tour around not only our township but Laurentian Valley, North Algona Wilberforce, and Bonnechere Valley at different spots around the county. So that'll be really exciting, and it will be there'll be someone guiding the tour. I believe one of our local farmers, Keenan Stone, who's really been instrumental in planning this, is also going to be, she's going to be there as a speaker, and she's going to be helping guide the bus trip as well, with alongside other folks from the local OFA here and some other of the farm organizations. And then the last day, there is a whole conference program on how are we going to be managing this new approach that is coming to us, and how other municipalities, not maybe outside Renfrew County, are thinking of creative ways to support agricultural economic development in a way that grows rural vitality. So I'm very excited about it. I'm not going to be there, but I would encourage everybody to go and represent Whitewater Region on my behalf. So thanks, Mayor.
I just have to highlight, we are one of the largest we are the largest agricultural municipality in the county of Renfrew. I think $40 million of egg production a year. So we are a significant contributor. We have, like Keenan Stone and his business here is international. Glasshouse Botanics is international. We have an international impact in agriculture. So I'm looking very forward to this. I think it's a great opportunity for the whole county to recognize agriculture in this way. Good. Thank you for scrambling that together. Excellent. That ends our announcements. And next is our bylaws. 13.1, there are 3 bylaws listed on the agenda. Be it resolved that the bylaws listed on the September 4th, 2024 agenda be taken as read and passed. Mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Moore. Is there any comments on the 3 bylaws listed? Now, I'll prompt you, Councillor Trim. The first one is related to the issue you wanted to talk about in announcements. So this would be an opportunity for you to discuss the first bylaw listed on the agenda, if you wanted to speak to.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sorry about that. Yes, coincidentally, as I was saying, we do not need to raise revenue to pay for over 10 years, extra revenue to over 10 years to pay for this, because the reduction in our share of recycling balances that. And so that's good. And so it's good news for us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem. Any other comments on any 3 of the bylaws listed on the, good? Seeing none, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you. Excellent. At this point in time, we are going to move into closed session. And I will read the recommendation that the Council of the Township of Whitewater Region move into closed session at 2:56. As per Section 9 of the procedural bylaw, discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, the employee engagement, with the CAO remaining in the room. And I'll just note publicly that we are going to take a short recess to prep the room and a bio break before we commence the closed session. But for the purpose of the meeting, it'll say 2:56. A mover and a seconder, please. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Tabbert. Any comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And it's carried. Thank you.